I was 9 months pregnant, standing in our kitchen at 2 a.m. when I found the restaurant receipt in Terrence's jacket pocket. But it wasn't the receipt that made my world stop. It was the lipstick-stained napkin folded. Inside it, with a phone number and the words, "Last night was amazing," written in handwriting that definitely wasn't mine. My name is Aaliyah Brooks, and this is the story of how I went from being abandoned, broke, and 9 months pregnant to building a multi-million-dollar empire. But before I tell you about the penthouse and the success, I need to tell you about that night, the night my whole life fell apart. I stood there, my swollen belly pressing against the counter, holding that napkin under the dim kitchen light. My hands were shaking so bad, I could barely read the words. Terrence was asleep upstairs, snoring like he didn't have a care in the world, while I was down here discovering that our entire marriage was a lie. You ever have one of those moments where everything suddenly makes sense? All those late nights he said he was working overtime at the auto shop. All those weekends he claimed he had to help his cousin move or fix his mama's car, or literally any excuse that sounded halfway believable. It all came crashing down on me like a ton of bricks. I'm not gonna lie to you, I wanted to march upstairs and throw that receipt in his face right then and there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the baby kicking inside me, reminding me that I had more than just myself to think about. Maybe it was the fact that I was exhausted from carrying this pregnancy alone while working double shifts at Save More Grocery until 5 months ago when they let me go because I couldn't stand on my feet for 8 hours anymore. Have you ever felt so betrayed that your whole body goes numb? Like you're watching your life from outside yourself? That's exactly how I felt standing in that kitchen. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, rubbing my belly, talking to my baby girl. Yeah, we were having a girl, telling her that mama was gonna figure this out. Telling her that we were gonna be okay, even though I had no idea how. When Terrence came downstairs the next morning, whistling like everything was perfect, I confronted him. I'll never forget the look on his face when I held up that napkin. First came the shock, then the denial, then the anger at me for going through his pockets. Can you believe that? He tried to turn it around on me. "Aaliyah, you're being paranoid," he said, pouring himself coffee like we were discussing the weather. "That's just some girl from the shop who was being friendly. You're hormonal." Hormonal. That's what he called it when I caught him cheating on me while I was carrying his child. "Terrence, don't play me for a fool," I said, my voice shaking but strong. "I wasn't born yesterday. Tell me the truth." And you know what? He did. Right there in our kitchen with me 9 months pregnant, he told me he'd been seeing someone else for 6 months. 6 months. I was barely showing when it started. He said he felt trapped by the pregnancy, that he wasn't ready to be a father, that he needed space. If you've ever been in a situation where someone you loved completely disrespected you, you know that feeling of your heart just shattering into a million pieces. For more on how I survived what happened next, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I asked him one question. Are you gonna step up and be a father, or are you gonna run? He couldn't even look me in the eye when he said, "I think I need to leave." Y'all, I was due in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And this man was walking out the door. But here's the thing, I didn't beg. I didn't cry in front of him. I stood up as straight as my pregnant body would let me, and I said, "Then go. But don't you ever come back asking to be in her life when it's convenient for you." He left that day, packed a bag, and walked out like our 5 years together meant nothing. Like the baby girl growing inside me meant nothing. I sat on that couch for hours after he left, just numb. The apartment we'd been renting was in his name. I had $847 in my checking account. No job. No car, he took it because it was in his name. No family nearby, my mama was back in Georgia, and I'd moved to Chicago with Terrence 3 years ago for his big opportunity at the auto shop. I was alone, broke, and about to have a baby. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Have you ever felt that level of abandoned? Drop a comment below and let me know if you've ever had to start over from nothing. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more of this story. The next few days were a blur. I cried. Oh Lord, I cried so much. I cried for the marriage I thought I had. I cried for my daughter, who would grow up without her father. I cried because I was scared out of my mind about how I was going to survive. But on the fourth day, something in me shifted. I was sitting on that couch, and my baby kicked so hard it actually hurt. And I swear it was like she was telling me, "Mama, get up. We got this." So I got up. First thing I did was call my old manager at Save More, Mr. Peterson. He was a good man, always treated me fair. I explained my situation, well, the parts about needing work, not all the messy details, and asked if there was any way I could come back after I had the baby. "Aaliyah," he said, his voice kind but honest, "you know I'd hire you back in a heartbeat. But the corporate office won't let me hold a position that long. Best I can do is tell you to apply again when you're ready, and I'll put in a good word." Tell us in the comments what you would do in this situation, and if you like my story, you can support me by liking the video. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was honest. I respected that. Next, I called my mama. That was the hardest call I ever had to make. Admitting to your mother that your marriage fell apart and you're about to be a single mom with no money and no plan? That's a special kind of humiliation. But my mama, bless her heart, she didn't judge me. She didn't say, "I told you so," even though she'd had reservations about Terrence from the start. She just said, "Baby, you come on home to Georgia. We'll figure it out." But I couldn't. I don't know if it was pride or stubbornness or what, but something in me refused to run home with my tail between my legs. I loved my mama, but going back felt like admitting defeat. And I wasn't defeated, I was determined. I started researching everything I could about single mothers' resources in Chicago. I found a program that helped pregnant women with emergency housing. I applied for WIC and food stamps, and let me tell you, swallowing your pride and asking for help is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to survive. The landlord gave me 30 days to either pay the full rent or leave since Terrence's name was on the lease, and he'd stopped paying his half. 30 days. My baby was due in 2 weeks. I packed up everything I could fit into 2 suitcases and moved into a women's shelter on the south side. It was clean, safe, and the women who ran it were angels on earth, but it wasn't home. I shared a room with 2 other women, one who had 3 kids under 5, and another who was escaping a dangerous situation. Being in that shelter taught me something important. I wasn't the only woman who'd been knocked down. I wasn't the only one who'd been betrayed, left behind, struggling to make it. And you know what? Some of those women had been through way worse than me and were still standing, still fighting, still smiling. Have you ever been in a place where you had to completely humble yourself and start from the bottom? It changes you. For more on how I turned my life around, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. 2 weeks later, at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, my water broke. I was alone in that shelter room, and for a moment, pure panic set in. This was it. I was about to become somebody's mama, and I was doing it all by myself. One of the shelter workers, Miss Gloria, drove me to Cook County Hospital. She stayed with me through the whole labor, 12 hours of the most intense pain I've ever experienced. But when they placed my daughter in my arms, when I looked into her perfect little face, everything changed. I named her Destiny, because I decided right then and there that her life, and mine, was going to be about where we were going, not where we came from. Holding Destiny in that hospital room, I made myself a promise. I promised her that I would never let anyone make me feel small again. I promised her that I would build a life for us that was full of love, stability, and success. I promised her that she would grow up knowing her mama was a fighter, but I had no idea how I was going to keep those promises. I had a newborn baby, $200 left in my account after hospital copays, and I was living in a shelter. The first few weeks with Destiny were the hardest of my life. I was sleep-deprived, hormonal, still healing from childbirth, and stressed about money constantly. Every time she cried, I cried with her. Every time I had to ask the shelter for diapers or formula, I felt like I was failing her. But Miss Gloria, she kept telling me, "Baby, asking for help ain't failing. Giving up is failing. And you ain't giving up." When Destiny was 6 weeks old, I started applying for jobs. Anything and everything. Retail, food service, cleaning, you name it. But nobody wanted to hire a woman with a 6-week-old baby who'd need flexible hours and time off for doctor appointments. I got rejection after rejection. "We'll keep your application on file. We're looking for someone with more availability. We've decided to go in a different direction." Each rejection felt like another punch to the gut, but I kept applying. I had to. Then one day, I was at the free clinic for Destiny's 2-month checkup, and I was sitting in the waiting room, filling out job applications on my phone. I'd sent out 47 applications in 2 months. 47. A woman sitting next to me, probably in her 60s, well-dressed with kind eyes, leaned over and said, "You looking for work, honey?" I looked up, exhausted and probably looking rough. "Yes, ma'am. Got a baby to feed." "What kind of work you looking for?" "Honestly, anything that'll pay the bills and let me keep my baby close." She smiled and handed me her business card. "My name is Patricia Williams. I run a housekeeping service, but not like you're thinking. We do high-end residential and commercial cleaning for some of the wealthiest people and biggest companies in Chicago. The pay is good, the hours are flexible, and we support working mothers. Give me a call." Y'all, I almost cried right there in that waiting room. Finally, a break. I called her the next day, and she hired me on the spot. Started at $15 an hour, not a fortune, but more than I'd made at Save More. And Patricia was true to her word. She worked with me on scheduling, let me bring Destiny to the office when I needed to, and treated me with respect. For the first time since Terrence left, I felt like maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Working for Patricia's cleaning service changed my life in ways I never expected. It wasn't just about the money, though Lord knows I needed that. It was about learning how the other half lived. See, when you're cleaning someone's home, you see everything. You see how they organize their lives, what they value, what they spend money on. And I was cleaning for some of the wealthiest people in Chicago. CEOs, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs. People who had multiple homes, luxury cars, and more money than they knew what to do with. But you know what I noticed? Most of them weren't that different from me. They just had opportunities one never had. They took risks I was too scared to take. They believed in themselves in a way I was just starting to learn. I remember this one client, Mrs. Chun. She owned a chain of high-end boutiques. One day, while I was cleaning her home office, she was on a business call, and I heard her negotiating a deal. The confidence in her voice, the way she knew her worth and wasn't afraid to demand it, it was powerful. After her call, she saw me standing there and smiled. "You're Aaliyah, right? Patricia speaks highly of you." "Yes, ma'am," I said, trying not to seem like I'd been eavesdropping. "How long have you been working for her?" "About 4 months now." "And before that?" I hesitated. I didn't usually share my story with clients, but something about Mrs. Chun made me feel safe. "I worked at a grocery store, but I had to leave when I got pregnant. My daughter's 6 months old now." She nodded thoughtfully. "Single mother?" "Yes, ma'am." "That's hard work. Harder than any business deal I've ever done." She paused, looking at me with genuine interest. "What do you want to do with your life, Aaliyah? Long term?" Nobody had ever asked me that before. Not like that. Not like my answer actually mattered. "I want to build something," I said, surprising myself with my honesty. "I don't know what yet, but I want to build something that's mine, so my daughter never has to worry about money or depend on anyone who might leave." Mrs. Chun smiled. "That's a good answer. Keep that fire." And pay attention while you're cleaning these homes. You're getting a free education in how successful people think and operate. Have you ever had someone say something that completely shifted your perspective? That conversation changed everything for me. Drop a comment if someone's words ever changed your life. And make sure to like and subscribe to see how this story unfolds. From that day on, I started paying attention differently. When I cleaned home offices, I'd glance at the books on their shelves, business strategies, investment guides, entrepreneurship. I started listening to audiobooks while I cleaned, soaking up everything I could about building businesses. I was cleaning a penthouse in the Gold Coast one afternoon, belonged to some finance guy who was rarely home, when I had my light bulb moment. I was scrubbing his kitchen, which was spotless because he never cooked, and I thought, he's paying Patricia's company $200 to clean a kitchen that's already clean. And I'm getting $15 an hour of that. The math was simple. If I had my own clients, cutting out the middleman, I could charge $100 and still make way more than I was making now. And if I hired other women to help me, I could scale it up. That night, after I put Destiny to bed, I sat down with a notebook and started planning. I called it Fresh Start Cleaning Services. The idea was simple: high-quality cleaning services with a focus on supporting single mothers. Every woman I hired would be a single mom who needed flexible hours and fair pay. But I had a problem. I had no money to start a business. No capital, no equipment beyond basic supplies, and I was still living in the shelter with Destiny. I talked to Miss Gloria about my idea. She listened carefully, then said something I'll never forget. "Aaliyah, you don't need money to start. You need one client. Just one. Get one client who'll pay you directly, do excellent work, and ask them for referrals. That's how you build." So that's exactly what I did. I told Patricia I was grateful for the opportunity, but I wanted to start my own service. I was terrified she'd be angry, but she surprised me. "I've been waiting for you to figure that out," she said with a knowing smile. "You're too ambitious to work for someone else forever. I'll be your first client reference, and I'll send you customers who specifically want to support women-owned businesses." Y'all, I almost hugged her right there. Patricia didn't see me as competition. She saw me as someone worth investing in. My first independent client came through Patricia's referral. A woman named Susan, who owned a marketing firm in the Loop. She paid me $150 to deep clean her 3-bedroom condo. It took me 6 hours, but I made more in that one day than I'd made in a week working for Patricia's company. Susan was impressed. "This is incredible work, Aaliyah. Do you have a business card?" I didn't. But the next day, I went to the library, used their computers, and designed business cards on Canva. Printed them at FedEx for $20, which was a lot of money for me at the time, but I knew it was an investment. Within 2 months, I had 5 regular clients. Within 4 months, I had 12. I was working 6 days a week, bringing Destiny with me to morning jobs and finding babysitting swaps with other mothers at the shelter for evening appointments. I was exhausted, bone-tired. But for the first time in my life, I was building something. And every dollar I made went into 3 places: bills, savings for our own apartment, and reinvesting in the business. By the time Destiny turned 1, I'd saved enough to move us out of the shelter and into a small 1-bedroom apartment in Bronzeville. It wasn't fancy, the heating was spotty, and the neighborhood was rough, but it was ours. I cried the day we moved in. Happy tears this time. If you've ever worked your way out of a tough situation, you know that feeling of finally having your own place. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were actually making it? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for the rest of this journey. I hired my first employee around that time, a woman named Keisha, who I'd met at the shelter. She had 2 kids and was struggling just like I had been. Teaching her the business, giving her flexible hours, paying her fairly, it felt like I was building the company I wished had existed when I needed it most. Then I hired Shanice. Then Rita. Then Monique. All single mothers. All hustlers. All women who just needed someone to believe in them and give them a fair shot. Fresh Start cleaning services grew faster than I ever imagined. By the time Destiny was 18 months old, I had 8 employees and over 40 regular clients. We were doing residential and small commercial jobs. I'd upgraded our equipment, bought a used van for supplies, and even moved us into a 2-bedroom apartment. But the real turning point came when I met Isaiah. I was cleaning a new client's office, a tech startup in River North. I was there early, around 6 a.m., because they wanted the cleaning done before their team arrived. I was vacuuming the conference room when someone walked in. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said, looking genuinely apologetic. "I didn't know anyone would be here this early." I turned off the vacuum. "No worries. I'm almost done. You work here?" "I'm one of the founders. Isaiah Parker." He extended his hand. He was tall, had kind eyes, and wore a hoodie and jeans despite being a tech founder. There was something different about him. He didn't look at me like I was just the cleaning lady. He looked at me like I was a person. "Aaliyah Brooks. I own Fresh Start Cleaning Services." "You own it?" His eyebrows raised, impressed. "How long have you been in business?" "About 1.5 years." "That's amazing. How'd you get started?" Most clients never asked about my story. But Isaiah seemed genuinely interested, so I gave him the short version. Single mom, started from nothing, built it up client by client. "That's incredible," he said, and I could tell he meant it. "That takes serious grit. Most startups fail in the first year. You're clearly doing something right." We talked for maybe 20 minutes before his team started arriving. He asked about my business model, my growth strategy, my challenges. He talked to me like a fellow entrepreneur, not like the help. Before I left, he said, "Hey, my company is looking to partner with local businesses for a community initiative. Would you be interested in being featured? We're spotlighting Chicago entrepreneurs who are making a difference." I almost said no out of instinct. Who was I to be featured anywhere? But then I thought about Mrs. Chen's advice about knowing my worth. I'd be honored. That feature led to an interview in a local business journal. That interview led to more corporate clients. And Isaiah and I started seeing each other around, at networking events, community meetings, business workshops. He'd always make time to talk, to ask about Destiny, to share advice about scaling a business. He never made me feel less than because I ran a cleaning company while he ran a tech firm. If anything, he respected the hustle. Even more because he knew I'd started with nothing. 6 months after we met, he asked me to coffee. Not a business coffee, a real one. "Look, I know this might be forward," he said, looking a little nervous, which was cute. "But I'd like to take you to dinner. A real date. If you're interested." I was interested. Lord, was I interested. But I was also terrified. The last man I'd trusted had left me pregnant. And broke. How could I risk that again? But Isaiah was different. Over those 6 months, he'd shown me who he was through his actions. He'd introduced me to potential clients. He'd given me business advice that actually worked. He'd never once been inappropriate or made me uncomfortable. He respected me, my business, and my boundaries. "I have a daughter," I said, like he didn't already know. "Destiny. She's almost 2. Loves Moana, and according to you, is the smartest kid in her daycare class." He smiled. "I know, Aaliyah. And that doesn't scare me. If anything, it makes me respect you even more. Have you ever met someone who saw you, really saw you for who you are, and didn't run? That's rare. That's special. Comment below if you found that kind of person. And make sure to like and subscribe to see what happens next. Our first date was simple. Dinner at a soul food restaurant in Bronzeville, nothing fancy, but he insisted on meeting Destiny first. He came to my apartment, brought her a stuffed Moana doll, and sat on my living room floor playing with her for 30 minutes before we even left. Watching him with my daughter, seeing how gentle and patient he was, something in my heart cracked open. Maybe, just maybe, not all men were like Terrence. Dating Isaiah was different from anything I'd ever experienced. With Terrence, everything had been about him. His dreams, his schedule, his needs. But Isaiah? He showed up. Actually showed up. He'd text me in the morning asking how Destiny slept. He'd bring coffee to my apartment when I had early morning jobs. He'd offer to watch Destiny when I had important client meetings. And he never, not once, made me feel like I owed him anything for it. This is what partners do, Aaliyah, he told me one night when I thanked him for the 100th time. They support each other. You're building something amazing, and I want to see you win. 3 months into dating, he sat me down and said something that changed everything. I've been watching how you run your business. You're leaving money on the table. I was defensive at first. What do you mean? We're doing good. You're doing great, he interrupted gently. But you're thinking too small. You've got 8 employees, 40 clients, and you're maxed out. You can't grow beyond this model because you're still doing it all yourself. The scheduling, the bookkeeping, the customer service, the actual cleaning sometimes. He was right. I was working 18-hour days and barely keeping my head above water. What if you franchised, he continued. What if Fresh Start wasn't just your business but a model that other women could replicate in other cities? You'd provide the training, the systems, the branding. They'd pay a franchise fee and a percentage of revenue. You'd be building an empire instead of just a business. Franchising? I didn't even know what that really meant beyond McDonald's and Subway. But Isaiah walked me through it. He introduced me to his lawyer. He connected me with a business consultant. He helped me understand that Fresh Start could be so much bigger than just me and my team in Chicago. But franchising required capital. Lawyers, consultants, trademark registration, training materials, it all cost money I didn't have. How much do you have saved? Isaiah asked. About $15,000. I'd been putting away every extra dollar for almost 2 years. And how much do you think you could get from a small business loan? I laughed. Isaiah, I'm a single Black mother with no college degree and no assets. No bank is giving me a loan. That's what I thought too when I started my company, he said. But there are programs specifically for minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. Let me help you put together a pitch. Have you ever had someone believe in your dreams even more than you did? That's what Isaiah did for me. If you've ever had that person who pushed you to think bigger, drop a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more of this story. We spent 2 months preparing. Isaiah helped me create a business plan, financial projections, a franchise model. He coached me on how to pitch. We practiced until I could explain my vision in my sleep. I applied to 12 different funding sources. Got rejected by 10. But the 11th one, a women's entrepreneurship fund, invited me to pitch in person. I stood in front of a panel of 5 investors, my heart pounding so hard I thought they could hear it. But I thought about Destiny at home with Isaiah's sister. I thought about all the single mothers I'd hired who were depending on me. I thought about that girl standing in her kitchen at 2 a.m. with a lipstick-stained napkin, feeling like her world was ending. And I pitched my heart out. Fresh Start isn't just a cleaning company, I told them. It's a second chance. It's a model for how we can create economic opportunities for women whose society has counted out. Women like me. Single mothers who are told we're too risky, too unreliable, too much of a liability. But we're not. We're the hardest workers you'll ever meet. Because we're not just working for ourselves, we're working for our babies. 2 weeks later, they called. They were investing $100,000 in Fresh Start cleaning services. Y'all, I screamed so loud that Destiny started crying because I scared her. Then I cried. Then Isaiah came over. And we all cried together like a bunch of emotional fools. That money changed everything. I hired a proper business manager. I trademarked the Fresh Start brand. I created training materials and operations manuals. I built a real website. I moved my business into an actual office space instead of running it from my apartment. And then I started recruiting franchisees. My first one was Keisha, my very first employee. She wanted to open a fresh start location on the south side. Then Shanice wanted to take her skills back to her hometown in Indiana. Then a woman I'd never met reached out from Detroit after seeing an article about my business. Within a year, Fresh Start had 12 franchise locations across 5 states. Within 2 years, we had 35 locations. The revenue was insane, way more than I'd ever imagined. I wasn't just paying my bills anymore. I was building wealth. I bought a house. A real house with a yard for Destiny to play in a safe neighborhood with good schools. I bought a reliable car, nothing fancy, just a used Honda that wouldn't break down. I paid off every debt I had. And I started a college fund for Destiny that would make sure she never had to struggle like I did. Isaiah proposed to me on Destiny's 4th birthday. We were at her princess-themed party in our backyard, surrounded by all the people who'd supported me, Miss Gloria from the shelter, Patricia from the cleaning service, all my employees who'd become family. He got down on one knee in front of everyone, and my baby girl was more excited than I was. "Aaliyah, you're the strongest woman I've ever met," he said, his voice shaking a little. "You've shown me what real love looks like, loving yourself enough to build a better life, loving your daughter enough to never give up, and somehow finding room to love me too. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the question. We got married 6 months later. Nothing huge, just close friends and family at a beautiful venue overlooking Lake Michigan. Destiny was our flower girl, and she took her job very seriously. Isaiah's family welcomed us like we'd always been part of them. My mama flew in from Georgia and cried through the whole ceremony. It was perfect. Everything I dreamed of when I was young and naive, before Terrence broke me. But this time, it was real, built on respect, partnership, and genuine love. By the time Destiny started kindergarten, Fresh Start had 60 franchise locations and was pulling in multiple 7 figures annually. We'd been featured in Forbes, Black Enterprise, and Entrepreneur magazine. I'd been invited to speak at conferences about entrepreneurship and women in business. Me, the girl who'd been abandoned, broke, and living in a shelter 5 years earlier. I was a millionaire. A legitimate, self-made millionaire. But success doesn't mean your past disappears. And sometimes, it comes back to haunt you in the worst way. I was at my office downtown. Yes, I had a downtown office with a view of the skyline, when my assistant buzzed me. "Aaliyah, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. His name is Terrence." My blood ran cold. Terrence. I hadn't seen him or heard from him in over 5 years. Not since he walked out that door when I was 9 months pregnant. "Should I send him away?" my assistant asked, sensing my hesitation. Part of me wanted to say yes, but another part of me, the part that had grown stronger and more confident, wanted to face him, wanted him to see what I'd become without him. "Give me 5 minutes, then send him in." When Terrence walked through my office door, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked rough. His clothes were wrinkled, his face was gaunt, and he had this desperate look in his eyes that made him seem small. "Aaliyah," he said, trying to smile. "Wow. Look at you. Look at all this. I've been reading about you online. Fresh Start cleaning. You really did it." I didn't smile back. "What do you want, Terrence?" "I wanted to see you. To talk." "I know I messed up." "Messed up?" I cut him off, my voice icy calm. "You left me pregnant and broke. You abandoned your daughter before she was even born. That's not messing up. That's being a coward." He flinched. I know. And I'm sorry. I was young and stupid and scared. But I'm different now. I want to make it right. I want to be in Destiny's life. I want to be there for you. What would you do if the person who betrayed you came crawling back after you'd made it without them? Have you ever had someone try to return to your life after abandoning you? Let me know in the comments. And make sure to like and subscribe to see what happens next. I stood up from my desk, walked around to face him directly. "You want to be in Destiny's life? Where were you when she was born? Where were you when she took her first steps? Said her first word? Started school? You don't get to show up now because it's convenient. You don't get to be her father just because I made something of myself. Aaliyah, please.
No.
My voice was firm. You made your choice 5 years ago. You chose another woman over your family. You chose to walk away. Those choices have consequences. I lost everything, he said, his voice breaking. The shop closed. The woman I left you for, she left me when the money ran out. I've been struggling, sleeping on couches, barely surviving. And I kept seeing your face. Everywhere, magazines, online, billboards. You made it. And I'm so proud of you, baby. I always knew you were special. The audacity. The absolute audacity of this man to show up after 5 years and act like he'd been rooting for me the whole time. Don't call me baby, I said coldly. I'm not your baby. I'm not your anything. You don't get to be proud of me. You weren't there when I needed you. You weren't there when I was scared and alone and didn't know how I'd feed our daughter. You don't get to celebrate my success when you contributed nothing but pain. I know I don't deserve it, but I need help, he admitted, his pride finally breaking. I need money just to get back on my feet. You've got so much now. And there it was. The real reason he was here. Not for Destiny. Not for me. For money. I walked to my office door and opened it. You need to leave.
Now.
Aaliyah, come on. Security. I called to my assistant. Please escort Mr. Brooks out of the building. And make sure he doesn't come back. As security led him away, he looked back at me with this mixture of anger and desperation. You're making a mistake. I'm Destiny's father. I have rights. Then get a lawyer, I said calmly. And prepare to explain to a judge where you've been for 5 years. I'm sure they'll be very understanding. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time shaking. Not from fear. From anger. From the sheer nerve of that man thinking he could waltz back into my life after everything. But then I looked around my office. At the photos of Destiny on my desk. At the framed magazine covers on my
wall.
At the city stretching out below me. And I realized something. Terrence couldn't hurt me anymore. He had no power over me. I'd built this life without him, and I'd protect it without him. That night, I went home to Isaiah and Destiny. We had dinner together, laughed about Destiny's day at school, and read bedtime stories. This was my family. This was my life. And nobody, especially not Terrence, was
going to take that from me.
But I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. Men like Terrence don't just disappear when you tell them no. They come back. And they come back messy. 2 weeks after Terrence showed up at my office, I got served with legal papers. He was suing me for custody of Destiny and demanding 5 years of back child support from me. Can you believe that? The man who abandoned us was trying to get money from me. I called my lawyer immediately. Can he actually do this? He can file whatever he wants, she said calmly. But winning? That's a different story. We have documentation that he abandoned you during pregnancy, never paid child support, never tried to contact Destiny, and only showed up after you became successful. No judge is going to look favorably on that. She was right. The hearing was a disaster for Terrence. The judge looked at him with pure disgust as my lawyer presented evidence. Photos of me at the shelter with newborn Destiny. Bank statements showing I'd never received a dime from him. School records showing Isaiah listed as Destiny's stepfather for emergency contacts. Character witness statements from Miss Gloria, Patricia, and others who'd been there when Terrence wasn't. Mr. Brooks, the judge said, her voice sharp. You abandoned your child for 5 years. You made no attempt to contact her, support her, or be present in her life. And now you appear, coincidentally after her mother becomes financially successful, demanding custody and money. Your Honor, I was going through a hard time, Terrence started. We're all going through hard times, she interrupted. Ms. Brooks was going through a hard time when she was 9 months pregnant, and you walked out. She was going through a hard time when she was living in a shelter with a newborn. She was going through a hard time when she was working multiple jobs to feed your daughter. Where were you during her hard times? Terrence had no answer. The judge ruled in my favor on everything. No custody, no visitation without my approval, and definitely no child support for me. In fact, she ordered him to start paying child support to me, $400 a month, which we both knew he couldn't afford. Maybe if you'd been there from the beginning, the judge said, you'd have a relationship worth fighting for. But you chose to abandon your responsibilities. Now you get to live with those consequences. As we left the courthouse, Terrence tried one last time. He grabbed my arm in the parking lot. Aaliyah, please. I'm desperate. I don't have anywhere to go. I'm about to be homeless. I pulled my arm away. You should have thought about that before you left me homeless and pregnant. You should have thought about that before you chose another woman over your family. You should have thought about that before you spent 5 years not caring whether your daughter was alive or dead. Have you ever had to close the door on someone who hurt you, even when they were begging? It's hard, but sometimes it's necessary. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to cut someone off for your own
Peace.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. This story ends in a way you won't believe. I made a mistake, he shouted as I walked away. I was young and stupid. Don't you believe in second chances? I turned back to face him one last time. I believe in second chances for people who actually changed. You didn't come back because you realized what you lost. You came back because you wanted what I built. That's not change. That's opportunism. And I don't have space in my life for people who only want me when I'm winning. That was the last time I saw Terrence. But I heard through mutual acquaintances what happened to him after
That.
He couldn't make the child support payments, so his wages got garnished from the part-time job he finally got at a warehouse. He got evicted from the room he was renting. He ended up sleeping in his car, then in shelters. When his car got repossessed, the woman he'd left me for, the one he thought was worth destroying our family, she wanted nothing to do with him once she saw how low he'd fallen. Everything he'd chosen over me and destiny, it all disappeared, and he was left with nothing. Meanwhile, my life kept getting better. Fresh Start expanded to over 100 locations across 15 states. We started getting contracted by major hotel chains and corporate offices. We won awards for being one of the fastest-growing women-owned businesses in America. I was invited to the White House for a small business summit.
Me.
The girl from the South Side who'd lived in a shelter. At the White House, Isaiah's tech company got acquired by a major corporation, and he decided to step back and focus on philanthropy. Together, we started a foundation that provided grants and training to single mothers who wanted to start their own businesses. We called it the Second Chances Fund. Every woman who came through our program reminded me of myself, scared, struggling, but determined. And every time I helped one of them start their business, I felt like I was giving that 28-year-old version of myself the help I'd needed. Destiny grew up smart, confident, and kind. She never knew the struggle of those early years because Isaiah and I made sure she never had to. But we taught her the value of hard work, the importance of resilience, and the power of lifting other people up. When she asked about her biological father, because eventually kids ask, I told her the truth in an age-appropriate way. Your first daddy wasn't ready to be a father, so he left. But your real daddy, Isaiah, chose to love you every single day. That's what makes a father, not biology, but showing up. She understood. And she never asked to meet Terrence. Isaiah was her dad in every way that mattered. On our 5th wedding anniversary, Isaiah and I were sitting on the balcony of our home, watching Destiny play. In the yard with our 2-year-old son, Isaiah Jr. Yes, we'd grown our family. And every moment felt like a blessing. You ever think about where you'd be if things had gone differently? Isaiah asked, holding my hand. Sometimes, I admitted. If Terrence hadn't left, I probably would have stayed in that toxic marriage, working at a grocery store, never discovering what I was capable of. In a weird way, him leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. That's a powerful perspective. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. Those first few years were hell. But they made me who I am. They taught me I could survive anything. And they led me to you, to this life, to understanding my worth. Isaiah kissed my forehead. You always had worth, baby. You just finally saw it. He was right. That was the real transformation. Not the money, not the success, not the business empire.
It was
Learning that I was worthy, worthy of love, worthy of success, worthy of respect, whether I had a man or not, whether I was rich or poor, whether I was struggling or thriving. If you're watching this and you're going through your own struggle, whether it's a bad relationship, financial hardship, or feeling like you'll never make it, I want you to hear me. You will survive this. You are stronger than you know. And the person who walks away from you is making the biggest mistake of their life, even if they don't realize it yet. Your worth isn't determined by who stays or who leaves. It's determined by how you get back up after life
knocks you down.
It's determined by how you fight for yourself and your babies when nobody else will.
It's
determined by your refusal to let your circumstances define your destiny. I named my daughter Destiny for a reason. Because our destinies aren't written by our past, they're written by our choices in the present. Terrence chose to leave. I chose to rise. He ended up on the streets. I ended up on magazine covers. He lost everything. I gained everything that actually mattered. And the best part? I did it all without him. I didn't need him to validate me, to save me, or to complete me.
I
completed myself. And then I found a partner who enhanced my life instead of trying to control it. That's the real happy ending. Not revenge, not karma, not watching your ex suffer. Though I won't lie, there was some satisfaction in that. The real happy ending is building a life so beautiful that you're grateful for the people who left because they made room for the people who were meant to stay. Today, Fresh Start Cleaning Services is valued at over $8 million. I employ over 500 women across the country, most of them single mothers like I was. I own my home outright. My kids go to the best schools. Itravel, I give back, and I live without fear of losing it all because I know now that even if I lost everything, tomorrow I have the strength and skills to build it all back. That's true wealth. Not the money in your bank account, but the confidence in your ability to create value, to overcome obstacles, and to rise no matter how many times you fall. So if you're that woman right now, pregnant and alone, broke and scared, wondering how you'll make it, this story is for you. You will make it. You will rise. And one day, you'll be telling your story to inspire someone
else.
Thank you for watching my journey. If this story touched you, moved you, or inspired you, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your past doesn't determine your future. You do. This is Aaliyah Brooks, and this is how I went from betrayed to boss. So, here's my story. What's going on in your life? How are your relationships with your spouses, your jobs, your friends betrayed? Are you left alone with these challenges? Let's talk about it all. We are women who become stronger as we tell our stories. Never feel alone. This is a safe zone. Share your thoughts in the comments. We are here for you. If you want more powerful comeback stories, you can like and support my video and subscribe to the channel.
Goodbye.